Hi, I'm Sash, and welcome to Geek Arts, the show that's committed to teaching you about characters and how to draw them. In this episode, we're learning how to draw Talos from Captain Marvel. If you missed the character bio we did about Talos, we'll have the link to it in the top corner of the screen. For this exercise, we're using Autodesk Sketchbook on the iPad. Here we go. In step 1, we're going to focus on the pencil sketch. And the first thing I'm doing on the screen right now is I am drawing out the basic forms, okay? So we'll start out with an oval shape, as you can see, and then down the center of the oval, we're going to draw something called a line of symmetry, which is a vertical line that divides the face into two halves. I'm then plotting out the structure of the face in proportion, so that's about 1/3 for the nose down and then another third for the mouth down. As you can see, it's a very rough sketch of Talos. He's got some pointy ears, a weird chin, and so I'm just putting in some of those details right now with a pencil. Again, as you can see on screen, I'm also going ahead and adding some very basic shadow detail. I'm thinking that this particular image could be a little bit darker, maybe the lighting coming from the left side and therefore casting a lot of shadow on the right side of his face. It might also be a top-down directional light, so the crevices of his face will be relatively dark, especially underneath that chin there. Of course, you can copy what I'm doing on screen, but feel free to add the level of detail that you're comfortable with. As you can see, I've put down some X's on the background, and that's to signify that's where the black areas are going to be. The next step is the inking phase. In traditional comic book illustration, we call this the inking phase. We're basically going to go over some of the darkest details right now with the black color. So we're going to fill in some black color using the lasso tool and the paint bucket. As you can see on screen, I'm selecting the areas that I want to fill in, starting with background, and I'm using the paint bucket to simply drop in that color. Now, of course, this does not have to be perfect, and you should try and take your time with this. Another thing that's really important is that this is done on a new layer. So you're going to want to make sure that you are not doing the inking on top of your pencil, but rather on a separate layer if you are using the app. If you're doing this on pencil and paper, I recommend using 2 pieces of paper, one for the pencil work and then one for the line art or the black ink work. So as you can see, I am just going over some of those details, and this is just to simplify the image, especially if your pencil work is relatively rough. You might not necessarily use it in the end, so think of the black overlay or the black layer as being your final line work. Okay, so now we can move on to step 3. I'm creating a new layer, and I'm going to drag that layer to the middle. So basically underneath the black layer, but on top of the pencil layer. And then again, I'm going in with the lasso tool and filling in some of the flat colors. So I'm starting with a very standard mid to dark green and a kind of purplish color for the hat as well as the costume. In step 4, we get to move on to some of the highlights. Now, I decided to do this one a little bit differently. As you can see, I'm painting in these highlights and shadows using the paintbrush. Now, the paintbrush that I'm using is the acrylic brush. I also used a little bit of the airbrush for some of the larger areas, and that made adding the shadows and highlights relatively easy. But that basically is the process that I follow to create this image. Of course, you can slow this down when you need to. Remember to save your work, guys. And there you have it. Remember that it takes practice, so give yourself enough time to master the techniques demonstrated here, and you'll be drawing better than this in no time. Here's a question for you guys. Would you like to see more tutorials like this, and what would you prefer to learn? Please write your comments below. Remember, thumbs if you liked it, subs if you loved it, and if you know of anyone who could benefit from this video, invite them to check it out. I'll catch you guys in the next episode. Take care.